Welcome everyone to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross. It is the Wimbledon 2025 second round show. Tough to follow up that opening round, but I think round number 2 did a pretty good job of keeping the momentum going, keeping the energy up, more upsets, more shockwave results, including the one that we are going to start today's show by talking about. The number 4 seed, the British Hope, Jack Draper, eliminated by Marin Cilic, the former Wimbledon finalist. A lot to digest. We'll talk big picture Draper. What does this mean? Big picture Cilic. What are the takeaways? We'll get to that in a moment. But I want to start with the nuts and bolts. What actually happened here? What in the world happened? Big headline. Cilic overpowered Jack Draper in this match. Cilic won this on his own terms, especially first set, second set. Jack was consistent. He didn't make a lot of errors. Cilic hit right through him. Forehand winners late in the second set was 15-3. I didn't check specifically forehand winners at the end of the match, but I'll tell you, total winners at the end of the match ended up being Cilic 53, Draper 29. Now, aces were +2 for Cilic. Sometimes the winner's stat can be really almost like poisoned by aces. Not the case here. Sometimes the winner's stat can also be affected by a lot of volley finishes, one player coming forward a lot more often. Not the case here. They were even on net points won. Draper a little bit more efficient, but he didn't get forward all that often, especially in the first 2 sets. So this wasn't about serving. This wasn't about net rushing. This was about ground stroke, firepower. This was about what was happening off the ground. And it's a two-way street. I'll start with the things that were really impressive about what Marin Cilic was doing. Aggression off the return. Marin is really great at taking control of points right off the return of serve. Both wings, so you can't say, okay, one side is safer than the other. Nope, he'll hurt you off of both. He will keep 2 hands on the racket even when he's stretched out to his backhand oftentimes and still get a lot on the return. His forehand seems to almost be at its most dangerous when he's lunging to his right while hitting it. So it's not as if Cilic will only really burn you if you completely miss your spot. He'll also kind of do it when he's stretched out. And he'll get a lot of pace and he'll take a big swing. And it just feels like he's able to square up that return and hit it flush pretty often, despite the fact that normally a player being that aggressive is going to just miss a lot of returns. Doesn't really go that way, seemingly, with Marin. And I was also struck by just how comfortable Cilic was attacking off of any contact height. Didn't really matter. And Draper has that heavy contrast. Forehand spins a lot, tends to bounce higher. Backhand is flat, tends to bounce lower. And again, for Cilic, certainly on a grass court with Marin's height, he's never really feeling as if he's bothered by, the contact point being above his strike zone. That's never really a problem, despite Draper's forehand. And by the way, this is something I'll just throw in here. Something that Jack won't appreciate with grass. Like the 2 big runs that Draper has gone on, Indian Wells, Madrid, 2 of the most high bouncing courts on the entire circuit. Maybe the 2 most high bouncing courts on the entire circuit. Madrid with the clay altitude, Indian Wells, that forehand of Draper's was kicking up like crazy. So grass is the antithesis of that. Just going to throw that in. But the more important aspect here was off of Draper's backhand, which I've often praised for being a shot that is very difficult to attack because it stays low. I was amazed at how comfortable Cilic was attacking Draper's backhand from a low contact point on the forehand side. It didn't seem difficult for Cilic to do damage off of Draper's backhand, which is really impressive. What Marin was doing tactically, he was making Draper hit a lot of backhands. Marin was really trying, when he was in a neutral position, when they were in a on even terms in the rallies. Marin was trying to keep the ball either up the middle or to Draper's backhand. So that's easy. If Cilic has a forehand, he's just taking it cross, taking it middle a lot. But the backhand wasn't going cross too often. The backhand was staying middle and going a lot down the line, making Draper hit backhands and then only going into Jack's forehand when it was time to get on offense. So a lot of the winners, a lot of the finishing shots were actually into Draper's forehand. That's because all of the work was done throughout the point at softening up Draper into his deuce side. So he's only going into the forehand when it's time to be offensive. Then it became the main target. But it was, so first of all, why was Cilic playing this way? Well, he didn't want Draper to open up the court with his forehand. I think that's what he was looking to avoid. And in order to avoid that, he doesn't want Jack hitting forehands with set feet off the center line. It's one thing if you go hard down the middle, kind of back Jack up, especially with depth. And even if Draper's hitting a forehand from the middle off of a deep ball, there's no angle to work with. He can't open up the court. That's fine. What Cilic didn't want was Draper on the left side of, moving to his left to hit forehands comfortably. And that's where you have the down the line, you have the cross-court angle, and the point can get kind of lateral and athletic, which is what Cilic doesn't want. Cilic's biggest weakness is his movement. So what was really interesting to see is because Marin was constructing points like this, Draper off of his backhand wing was not able to make the points lateral at all. Like he just couldn't make the points lateral, and it turned into a very straight ahead contest of ball striking, which is one that Marin was really enjoying and really excelling in. On the Draper side of things, I try to emphasize this. I've tried to emphasize this in the past. I try to tell you guys, his wiring is not to miss. I'm telling you, the way his brain is wired is don't miss, don't make mistakes. And I just feel like there's so much amnesia with that when it comes to Jack, because we see this big, strong lefty dude hitting huge serves with like a pretty muscular forehand nowadays. And people are like, oh, Draper's this big offensive guy, ultra offensive guy. That's not who he is at his core. Anybody who watched him, as a really young player could see that. And anybody who's seen the interviews with Jack, with his coaches growing up, they know that Draper was a grinder. That is his foundation. And we saw that here. We saw that at least under pressure, maybe feeling a lack of confidence, we saw that the reaction here was to be a little bit passive. Maybe he thought that Cilic was going to start to kind of miss more often, and it didn't happen. But for the first two sets, the main knock on what Draper was doing was that he was just playing too neutral, and he was not proactive enough in the baseline rallies, and he was just allowing Cilic to kind of control things and have his way. The Tennis Insights in attack percentage was as low as I've basically ever seen. He was at 16%. Late in the second set, or maybe at the end of the second set, he was at 16%, which is crazy. Tour average is 22%. Really, really high is 30%. So in the range of in attack percentage, Jack was way, 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 way down towards the defensive end of things. Now, Draper did adjust. After the second set, Jack made the adjustment. He realized what was happening. You saw him in the second set get more proactive, injecting pace in the rallies, more attacking on the second returns. And in the third, he had by far his best serving set. His first serve made a much bigger impact. In the fourth set, really high quality, good level. This was the point in time where I thought Draper was playing well. I thought Cilic was playing well. But then at the end of the set, Jack just got tight. So I think the knowledge that he needed to be more offensive, after set two, the knowledge was there. The adjustment was made. It paid off in the third. In the fourth, it could have paid off. He got tight. Should have been broken at 3-4 because, well, Draper hit some horrible forehands in that game. And he got lucky. He shanked a ball on break point. It just landed in. Deuce, he probably should have lost the point. Cilic missed a pretty easy forehand by a sliver that would have been a winner. But then in the next game, 4-5, and, maybe the scoreboard pressure was relevant here. The fact that Cilic got to start that set serving first. Again, Jack missed 4 first serves in a row. He made an awful decision to drop shot off of a low backhand. I hate that play from an uncomfortable contact point going to the drop shot. I almost never like that. Unless you're like Mute or Bublik or Pair, and you have the hand skills to make drop shots from awkward positions. Like, other than that, no. Like, a drop shot it's an offensive shot. You should be doing it from a position of comfort. And comfort is not hitting a drop shot from knee level. And that's what Draper tried to do. And by the way, Cilic wasn't even deep in the court, so it wasn't even like as if there was much of a positional advantage. And then, a couple of baseline rallies late in the game was a perfect example of what we're talking about. Like, you look at the match point, what a well-played point by Cilic, where it was deep up the middle, depth up the middle, drew the short ball, got a chance to attack, went hard into Draper's forehand, as he usually did when he gave himself a green light to do some real damage. So forehand inside out, forehand inside in to finish into the open court. It was also a forehand inside out that I believe won him the point on the 30-all point previously. So same story there in crunch time. Missed first serves by Draper, and then baseline points that Cilic had control of really from the very start, and he never gave it up because the ball striking was just so awesome. So for Cilic, big picture, no, let's start with Draper. For Draper, big picture, the knives are going to be out. Second round loss at Wimbledon as a number 4 seed with all the expectations. Knives are going to be out. And look, I'll be on the front lines defending him, despite the admissions that I will readily make about the shortcomings of this particular performance. I would just ask everybody, can we please think big picture? Please? He has done nothing but steadily improve for the last 3 years. The trajectory is so positive for the last 3 years. What more can you ask from a guy? It is so hard for me to get negative. I've been really consistent about this all the time. It is so hard for me to get negative about somebody who just keeps improving. He did not handle... look, the concern coming in was the expectations. Everybody knew that. And he did not handle the big points well in the 4th set. And, arguably, he played tight from the very start of this match with just how passive it was. So the nerve management issues, which I believe Draper has had to varying degrees his entire career, he still needs to work through those things. Didn't we know that? Didn't we know that coming into the year? Shouldn't that be expected? Draper's played one major quarterfinal in his career. And we were coming into this tournament. I wasn't. But people were coming into this tournament being like, yeah, he can win it. He's a contender to win it. No, he's not there yet. He needs more experience. He needs more seasoning. He needs to put himself in these situations and get used to this. Now, it's also like there's a possibility that there's a real problem here in terms of nerve management that won't get resolved. But I would just say it's way too early to know that. Way too early. Didn't we know that this could happen? Didn't we know that it was going to be really difficult for him to deal with the pressure coming into his first Wimbledon as a contender the year after Andy Murray retires? I did. And look, this is not an I told you so. It's just like a way of being like, I hate it when players are victimized by other people's unrealistically shifting expectations. We came into the year and Like, just because the guy wins Indian Wells doesn't mean he's supposed to win Wimbledon all of a sudden. He's not there yet. It's not where we're at in this process. And I feel like I have the right to say this. I put my money where my mouth is. I picked him to finish 8th in the world at the start of this year. I said at the time, I think that's a positive. I think that's a good year for him. He's on pace to surpass that because he's taken a really nice, healthy leap in 2025 so far. And I picked Mensik to make the quarterfinal here. So I feel like I have the right to say all this. And I did this. The reason I picked Mensik instead of Draper is because of the pressure. And I think we saw that here. Now, if he doesn't make a major quarterfinal this year, would that be a bummer? Yes, it would be a bummer. Big time. But he overachieved at the Australian Open with no prep because he got hurt with his hip. And Roland Garros on clay, he couldn't win a match last year. He couldn't win a single match. He stunk on clay last year. And now he had a pretty decent clay swing, more than decent compared to last year, and makes the 4th round and loses to a redlining Bublik. Again, on a surface he couldn't even win a match on last year. So if you're going to get super negative about that, okay. And then, Wimbledon gets another dangerous player, and he couldn't really deal with the pressure. But obviously, of the 3, this was the most disappointing, all things considered. Marin Cilic, flowers to him, 3rd most decorated player on grass in the field, unless you make an argument for Berrettini. But I kind of think, it's close between them. We might be splitting hairs. We don't need to. Point is, this guy has done some stuff on this surface. And these old guys are showing up. It's not just Djokovic who has a better chance on this surface because of some know-how savviness, the experience on the grass, the extra motivation for guys who can't do it week in and week out. Cilic hasn't been able to do it week in, week out. Fognini hasn't been able to do it week in, week out. Struff hasn't been able to do it week in, week out. Fucsovics lost, though, to Monfils today, right? I'm a little bit fuzzy on that result. I didn't watch that match. What happened with that one? Let me see. Sorry for the break in action. Oh, did they not finish? What is going on? My search didn't even work. Come on now. We're taking time out of the show. Monfils, yeah, he beat Humbert. That's what I thought. Okay, he beat him in 5. Great win by Monfils. What? No, I'm talking about Fucsovics. Oh, my goodness. What a disaster. Match didn't finish. That is where the confusion's coming in. So they're going to play a 5th set. I digress. Yeah, so I think it's a couple things. Motivation, experience, and physicality de-emphasis. That's huge. Like, Marin Cilic is slow, and that just doesn't matter as much on the grass. He can dictate. He can be offensive and get a lot of purchase out of that, and that's really important. So physicality de-emphasis, that's a big deal here, why some of these old veterans are playing so well. And I don't know if I mentioned Mannarino, but he's another guy this week who's done well. And then this is, a great story for Cilic, really resilient, coming back from injuries at his age. And I'm really happy to see that's paying off for him. And he gets another moment in the sun here. Really well-deserved, super, super good guy. And just a feel-good story for Marin. All right, we've got a lot of other stuff to get into. I want to take a look at the draw and sort of do a little bit of a predictions update, given how much chaos we've seen. So we're going to do that after a quick reminder that coverage of Wimbledon on Monday Match Analysis is brought to you by Go Sport. It's a family-owned company that specializes in just tennis bags, so they do it better. And recently I've been doing a little bit of traveling back and forth. So I've been rocking with my Axiom Tennis Backpack 2.0, which is great. It fits 2 rackets, which is all that I need. The rackets get their own compartment, which maximizes storage space for everything else. There are 6 additional pockets to organize your gear, so you can really keep things separated however you want to. That special ventilated pocket that I love on the big bag that holds shoes and old stinky clothes, the backpack has that as well. Great side pockets for holding large water bottles. It's cheaper than the full-sized bag, and it's even cheaper if you use the code GILL10 for 10% off your order. Check out gosport.com. That is GEAU sport.com to get 10% off your order. Okay, so I've written no notes for the activity I'm about to do, so I don't really know what I'm going to say, which is okay. I'm just going to go through the draw, and let's take a look at how things are shaking up with this men's draw, considering all of the upsets. We'll go 8th by 8th. So in Jannik Sinner's section, nothing has changed except Dimitrov has, stayed healthy, and he's going to play Sebastian Ofner in the 3rd round. Sinner's going to play Martinez. Okay, prediction stands there. No reason to update anything. On the bottom, there has been some interesting developments. Musetti loses. Sonego beats Basilashvili. Nakashima's in there. Shelton is in there. Shelton didn't finish against Hijikata today. The Fucsovic-Monfils match is in this section as well. Here's my point about this bottom section. I think it's going to be a Sinner-Shelton quarterfinal at this point. And that's because when the draw opens up for Ben Shelton, he does not miss. That's been really the story of his career. And it's been incredible kind of how often that's happened. Shelton is now the highest ranked player in his 8th. And part of that is also Tommy Paul losing to Sebastian Ofner. We'll hit on that result quickly in a moment. Actually, I'm sorry. That would not have been in Shelton's 8th. So that's irrelevant. Right? Yeah, that's right. That's irrelevant. But anyway, Shelton is the highest ranked player in his 8th. And against lower ranked competition in his career at slams, Shelton is 23-5. Shelton has an 82% win rate against lower ranked players, lower ranked than him at the time. Okay, that's the stat here at majors. He has won 13 of his last 14 when he's the higher ranked player. I think the loss is to Felix at Roland Garros. I believe that's the loss. So, yeah. I now think it is going to be a Shelton Sinner quarterfinal. Originally, I had Musetti, which, if I knew all of the details about his preparation, obviously that would have changed. No excuses, though. No excuses. Maybe I just made one. Maybe yes excuses. I don't know. You can determine that for yourself. Okay, next quarter, Djokovic's quarter. So with the Draper loss, either Mensik, Kaboli, Munar, or Cilic will be in the quarters. Obviously, I'm going to stick with my pick, Jakub Mensik. Bottom half, Djokovic. That De Minaur Djokovic 4th round match that I am hoping to see. Still on track. Sticking with my pick. Djokovic, Mensik quarterfinal there. To the bottom half, Taylor Fritz. Now he gets Davidovich Fokina, who I think is sneaky good on grass. But we'll talk about Taylor. In fact, the next match I want to talk about after this draw activity is going to be Fritz. Look, Fritz, things are looking really good for Taylor because his run to the semis won't go through anybody ranked higher than Karen Khachanov. But I believe that Nuno Borges will beat Karen Khachanov and make the quarterfinals. Nuno Borges' game makes a lot of sense to me on grass. That is kind of my reduxed pick there. Look, it's a tough one to call. But Borges, good spot server. Backhand stays low. Drive forehand is above average. Drop shot on the forehand is one of the best in the world. And he's another guy. He really benefits from athleticism being de-emphasized, because that's where Borges falls off a bit, is if when the points get long and physical and he needs to move side to side a lot, he can't really hang. But Khachanov, I think, has looked beatable. He's looked a little bit shaky. Borges has looked better. I think it's going to be Nuno Borges in the quarterfinals. Makes some sense to me. I think he'll play Taylor Fritz. And, of course, my pick to the semis, Taylor, sticking with that. Obviously, it's been very impressive that Fritz has been able to avoid what was a pretty brutal draw in the first couple rounds. Again, more on that in a moment. Bottom quarter, we've got Alcaraz in the top eighth of the Alcaraz section, which was Runa. It's all unseededs. I mean, if you're a Fonseca fan, you're pumped. You're fired up. It's Jarry, Fonseca, Bellucci, Norrie. Folks, Fonseca by far in that group is the most capable and technically the most advanced. And I was not thinking before the tournament that, like, I thought Fonseca would need a learning curve. The way he served has been impressive. The way he's defended at end range, both wings, has been impressive. Backhand, I think he's done a great job with that open stance sliding backhand. Forehand, he's done a great job with the chip forehand on the stretch. So it's not easy to defend on grass. I've been very impressed with Fonseca's ability to do so. It doesn't look too awkward for him right now at all. I think he's going to make the quarters at this point because the draw has opened up for him. Big server, big hitter coming up in Jarry. I just think Fonseca is capable of kind of neutralizing a lot of that. Mattia Bellucci and Cam Norrie. I'll talk about Cam a little bit more, but Bellucci. So let me tell you about Bellucci for a moment. And Bellucci beat Jiří Lehečka earlier today in the second round to pull off an upset there. I have been thinking since February that I was going to pick Bellucci as a Wimbledon dark horse. I was ready to go because I've been watching this guy, especially on clay, thinking, this is a grass quarter. This guy, with the serve he possesses, especially the lefty slice, but all in all, he's just a way above that. Probably the best server under 5'10", one of the best servers under 5'10" I've ever seen, with a flat backhand that he just loves to take super, super early. A more conventional forehand. A lot of flair, though, and somebody, like, I always think the shorter players have an easier time on the grass as well. Moving, low center of gravity, lower bounces, no problem. I've just thought, yeah, this guy's a grass quarter. And I've just been waiting to pick him as Wimbledon dark horse, so then the time came, and I'm like, man, he's got no results. Nothing. And I couldn't do it. But I did give him a shout out because you'll recall in this quarter of the draw, I said there were way too many great unseeded players, so I couldn't even choose one. That's what I said. And that has aged quite well because, lo and behold, it's basically, I mean, Struff, Mannarino, Norrie, Bellucci, Fonseca, Jarry. Like, these are all guys who I listed. Granted, I listed a ton of guys when I was like, man, the unseededs in this section are just insane. Well, there's going to be an unseeded in the quarterfinal. Bottom, Rublev is still alive. He plays Mannarino. Alcaraz against Struff. I'll stick with Alcaraz. So I've got Alcaraz over Fonseca in the quarters. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? That'd be fun. All right, so that is the update of the draw update on the men's side. Let's talk about Taylor Fritz. I'm very excited to talk about Taylor Fritz. His presence at this tournament has been like very outsized. Maybe less so in the UK, but if you're looking, sorry, a message made me laugh. Oh my God. Where was I? In the US, especially with the time zone and, Wimbledon being pretty early for a lot of people, especially on the West Coast, Fritz has played these 2 night matches, both of them 5-setters. He has dominated the airtime, the prime time airtime. So, yeah, it feels like he's been front and center. And, usually a guy wins back-to-back 5-setters. You praise the physicality. I don't think it's been physical at all. So I'm not about to praise his physicality. I am going to praise his concentration. A lot of concentration for Fritz 3 days in a row because the Pecci Perry card was a two-parter. And, you play a loose game against these big servers, and it's an absolute killer. And that just isn't happening. Now, I don't know what happened in the first set, missed the first set, didn't watch it. But then I was watching the match from there. And, even in the fourth, Diallo got a break in the fourth. He played a great game there. And obviously, Taylor didn't face a break point throughout the Pecci Perry card match. So he is literally just, he's played 10 sets of tennis, and there hasn't been a bad service game. That's concentration. His unforced error counts in these two matches. And I get it. It's a little bit easier to keep the unforced error count low when you are playing so many one and done, serve and done points. But they are minuscule, Taylor's unforced error counts. Minuscule. Not missing. He's doing a good job of also just he's not missing, but he's playing, he's maintaining enough ball quality where he's not just pushing, which is a pitfall that some people do get into against the big servers because they don't want to miss. But now you're kind of playing into their hands as attacking players. Diallo served 74% first serves in over the 5 sets. And Fritz, again, gets it done. So I know I talked about Taylor's block returning against Pecci Perry card. I went through the fact that it's a proven winner in 2025, and he's beaten all these big servers, and I was so impressed by it in Stuttgart. Let's go even deeper. Let's keep nerding out. And I'll tell you, I wrote all this stuff. I wrote all of these really in-depth thoughts. I thought long and hard about Taylor's block return, and I watched it even more carefully in the Diallo match. And then Taylor in his press conference went super in-depth on it, and then people sent that to me this morning. So I got to kind of compare what are the conclusions that I came to on my own, and then, okay, what did Taylor say? Because Taylor, I've talked about this before, tactically, the best player on the tour in press. Nobody gives away more. It probably drives his team crazy. I'm pretty sure it does, but it's our game. It's refreshing for people like us. And I love that. I love it about Taylor. So I got to compare things. There's a couple conclusions that I came to that Taylor didn't mention. And then there were a couple things that we were aligned on. So you got a little bit of both. I'll start with just the stuff that I was going to talk about before Fritz even said anything. I mentioned, after the Pecci Perry card match, it's an Eastern grip on the block return. It's an Eastern grip, not a continental. Why is that important? It's important because the bottom hand on Taylor Fritz's backhand is also an Eastern grip. So Taylor is holding his backhand grip, which means he doesn't need to grip change regardless of what side it comes to. I do think it also helps him keep the racket face a little bit more closed. And what you're seeing on these block returns is he's not softening up the hands and making thin contact. He's actually staying very firm in the hand, very firm in the wrist, and making thick contact with the tennis ball. And the Eastern grip allows him to kind of keep the racket face a little bit more closed as he looks to make straighter on contact with the ball. And therefore, it is a far pacier block return than what we sometimes see. It's not so much floating. It's kind of coming through the air with some speed. And that's on the forehand side with the block. On the backhand side, he can do the ultra abbreviated, and I mean ultra abbreviated drive return. So regardless of what wing you're going to, Taylor has a plan here, and he's got a very light racket, one of the lightest in the world, which adds to the maneuverability, which I think also plays into how he can be so quick with his hands to stand up on the baseline, against 140 miles per hour. And on the backhand side, he's actually driving Again, he's shortening up the swing, but he's actually driving. And on the forehand, he's doing such a good job of getting the racket out in front. And again, he's hitting this faster chip. And between the court position, how close he's standing, and the fact that it's a faster chip, it's actually rushing these guys. He's actually rushing his opponents with a chip block return. That is not normal. Usually, the block return, it's great because you're going to make more balls in play, but we talk every technique, every tactic has a trade-off, right? Usually the trade-off is, okay, you can make more returns in play, but you are not going to rush your opponent on the other side. If you just watch what Taylor's doing, and it's because of the positioning and it's because of the speed on the block, he is rushing his competition. It also allows him to get it to his opponent's backhand because there's less runaround time. And he's often targeting the ad side successfully. If you hit a block return into the ad side and it's too slow, or you haven't taken enough time away because you're too deep, that's usually everybody's favorite +1 forehand. You're going to block into the ad side? Great. +1, inside out, inside in. That's my jam if I'm a serve +1 forehand player. But with Taylor, you don't have the time to do it. You've got to accept backhand. And now you're hitting, for almost everybody, you're hitting off the wing that struggles to generate pace from a low contact point. You're not going to be able to do any damage, and now Taylor's in the baseline rally. The one trade-off to standing up on the baseline is that your body serve vulnerable, and I don't have much analysis on why this is the case. Taylor just fights off the body serves really, really well. He does a good job of it. He gets out of the way. He fights it off. So the one thing that you could say, okay, well, this is a downside to how close he's standing. Opponents haven't really been able to take advantage of that. Now let's go to what Fritz talked about. There's one thing that Fritz talked about that I didn't really think of, which is that he feels on the deuce side, because he has a Western grip on his drive forehand, that it's too tough for him to kind of get around the outside of the ball with that Western grip off the wide serve. So when guys hit a slice serve at his forehand on the deuce side and Taylor is standing deeper and trying to drive, he doesn't feel like he can deal with that particular return. He feels like there's too much court to cover as well because they get that angle, they get that left to right swing. It's too much court to cover. So what Fritz is doing by standing up close is he's trying to take away that serve before the ball has a chance to dive off the court, before the ball has a chance to swing off the court. Taylor is standing in and cutting that angle off really, really, really tight. So a lot of it for Taylor is I'm taking away the wide. And that's part of the calculus of why he's standing so close, which is not something that I considered. Taylor did talk about the Eastern grip thing, the fact that he doesn't need to grip change, and he can forehand chip with an Eastern grip, doesn't need to be continental. And then Taylor also talked about the time, where he said, quote, "If you stand 5 feet behind the baseline and chip, it makes no sense. You're giving your opponent so much time." Fritz has strong opinions, about the game. Like he's almost like a tennis philosopher. There are things that he simply doesn't believe in. And this was a new one. So Taylor doesn't believe in the body serve. He doesn't believe in winning sets 6-love. He thinks that it's usually bad if you win 6-love. And he does not believe in chip returns from 5 feet behind the baseline, which, by the way, isn't that deep. He didn't say 10 feet behind the baseline. He said 5. For Taylor, that's a no-no. Too much time on the other side. So I'm just loving it. It's going to be interesting. So next opponent, totally different. Now we've got a speedy guy in Davidovich Fokina who doesn't serve all that big. So it'll be curious to see how it looks for Taylor. But I think it'll be a relief. I think Fritz is going to be like, thank God. Diallo was a nightmare. I mean, he's managed it really well, but I think it's going to feel refreshing for Fritz. I do want to talk about Gabriel Diallo. How good can he be? Because this was a great showing. I talked about him in my preview. I'm high on him. I made him a dark horse. But I think that there's a wide range of outcomes here. I think he has a higher upside than most mega servers. And his serve is really big, but he does a great job of keeping the percentage up. He's kind of Zverev-like. He's kind of Chris Eubanks-like as well. He's not going to just bomb the ball and only make 55%. That's not what Diallo does. So he does a great job of making a lot. The reason I think he has a higher upside than most of the big servers is because he's got quick feet. Really quick feet. I'm not saying he defends well. I'm not saying he's a speedster. But his maneuverability, especially forward and backwards, is really great, which is a lot of what has allowed him to be such a successful net rusher as he's improved his volley so rapidly. By the way, Pat Rafter in his box, not a bad consultant when you are trying to volley better, huh? Not bad. And he's working with Craig O'Shaughnessy, analytics guy. His coach, I'm doing this off the top, Martin, I forget his last name, but also an experienced coach. So he's putting really good people around him. Not cheap, by the way. I don't know what his background is, but it might just be that he is making an investment. He realized he's young, and he's like, I'm 22 years old. I'm not going to cheap out on my development. And I'm going to bring in Pat Rafter as a consultant. I'm going to bring in Craig O'Shaughnessy for my analytics. I'm confident that the money's going to come. I'm going to be top 20. I'm going to be top 10. I'll make that dough. I don't need to save. So that's an interesting aspect of it as well. But you can't teach quick feet. I think Diallo has that. The question is, can he develop his ground stroke technique? Can he build up a weapon on his forehand? Because right now, we saw Fritz really take advantage of Diallo's forehand in the rallies. The backhand is not all that consistent either, but it's flat and it's actually pretty big. It can be pretty damaging. But the biggest thing for Gab is going to be building a weapon off of that forehand side, because it's not awkward technique. It's just a little stiff. And somehow, despite him being 6'7", he's kind of underpowered unless he's stationary and completely flattening the ball out. If you have Diallo like moving to his right, he doesn't get much on that forehand. And as an offensive player, which he needs to be, he's got to be an offensive player. It's tough to win without a big forehand. And the way he's doing it right now to cover it up is he's getting to the net as quickly as possible. And that way, like, he's not asking his forehand to finish points. Forehand doesn't need to finish. He'll come forward and knock it away. Okay, that's great. I love that. There might be a limit to that. And the development of the forehand is going to be the big X factor for him. Okay, so those were the really big things I wanted to talk about. Now let's kind of go through things a little bit more rapid fire. I hit on Fonseca. I don't know how much more I have. Great win versus Brooksby. Massive premium in the free points battle. That's one thing I'll mention, which is not hard against Brooksby, but it's significant. It's significant. It's important in this match. And Fonseca is serving, I think, as well as I've ever seen him serve at the moment. The serve, this is just an overall positive with Joao. It's getting better pretty quickly. I talked about the defense, which I think has been really good, which is the biggest thing on grass. When a young player gets on the grass, usually their defense is just horrible. And Fonseca's just figured it out very quickly. I think, Fernley with his inside-out forehand was trying to build points. Wasn't really getting anywhere. Brooksby, it's kind of tough for him to finish against good defense. And it was tough for him to finish against good defense, especially when Fonseca was chipping and taking the pace out of the ball and keeping it low. Like, Brooksby is just not the kind of guy who's able to who can generate off of that ball. There was some heat between the two. I thought Fonseca did a great job of just kind of ignoring Brooksby, because Brooksby, I think, was trying to make things chippy, because Brooksby was he started to stare Fonseca down, And there was one point in the match where he made a pretty bad forehand error. Fonseca said, come on. And then before the next point, he clapped. He waited until Fonseca was looking at him, and he clapped his hands against his racket as if to say, good point. Obviously sarcasm. He was saying, like, great job. You made me miss a forehand. Congrats. So, like, Brooksby was trying to kind of turn this into something mentally, and Fonseca was just like, yeah, I'm good. He handled it really well. Just like he's handled hostile crowds really well in his career, like when he was, and just raucous crowds, like when he played in Buenos Aires, and, he was playing a lot of Argentines on that run. I think he does a really good job of just like, I'm playing tennis. I don't care what's happening around me. Playing tennis. I think I had one more thing. Yeah, no, I think that's it. Yeah. Tiafoe Norrie. Frances started this match off great. And I thought in the second set he played well. I think Cam was down a love 40 in the second set at one point. Norrie's serve kind of kept him in the second set. And what was really striking about this match when you look at it, huge thunder. What was really surprising, it actually kind of scared me. What was really surprising about this match is the serve disparity. Now, I'm not going to tell you that, like, on the radar gun, Norrie and Tiafoe were the same. No. I mean, Tiafoe serves a lot bigger than Cam. But whose first serve was more effective? Whose serve overall was more effective? Cam Norrie's. Cam Norrie outserved Frances Tiafoe. Foe served 51% first serves in. It was really bad in, I think, set 4. Honestly, set 4 was just as bad as the rest of the match. He was 49%. So Tiafoe, 51% first serves in. Norrie, 76% first serves in. Slider out wide on the ad for Cam. It was bothering Foe. Tiafoe has a great backhand return, but what's so good about it? He redirects pace. He absorbs so well off of it. But Norrie is hitting a much slower sliding serve on that ad side. And I don't know, it just forces Tiafoe to kind of, he needs to sort of create something off of that. And he was not having a good time with it at all. It wasn't like, I know Tiafoe would have rathered serve it hard, serve it actually faster, don't get as much width. That's where his backhand return can actually perform how we're used to it performing, but that's not what Norrie was doing. And by the way, Norrie, 17 aces. Second highest in his career. 76% first serves in, as I mentioned. Fourth highest of his career in a best of 5. He served great. Tiafoe off the ground. Lost it in sets 3 and 4. And I don't know if it was the serve kind of dragging down the rest of his game. Norrie settled in. Cam got really consistent. What have I said last couple years about Norrie? The consistency and the idea that Norrie was just never going to give you anything cheap. That was happening very much so when he was at his best. And it's actually the consistency that's fallen off in recent years. This was another one of those matches kind of got back to where he needs to be. If Norrie wants to be really successful, he cannot miss. He made 23 unforced errors in this match. And between Tiafoe not serving well and Norrie playing really consistent and making returns, it was just too much volume for Frances to deal with. Way too much volume. Meaning, just like rally after rally after rally, where Cam isn't missing. And he's super tricky. And this is the other thing. Look, Norrie beat Draper at Wimbledon last year. Norrie's been a semifinalist at Wimbledon. The serve is much better here, but the backhand becomes such a buzzsaw, such a pain for everybody to deal with on grass. Like no other surface can do. I mean, it gets so good on grass. Alcaraz, Tarvet, obviously there's not a ton here. I mean, Tarvet moves like crazy. Tarvet can move. He's got to develop the rest of his game, or he's not going to be a great pro. Alcaraz played all right. Reliability on the forehand wing still probably wasn't what he needs it to be. That's all I've got on that match. Felix Struff. Struff takes it. That's now 5 majors in a row where FAA hasn't been able to hold seed. And once again, pretty painful. Pretty painful how this played out. Auger-Aliassime up 6-3 in the second set tiebreak. 2 serves, 2 set points on his serve to go up 2-0. Missed a first serve. Struff hit a forehand winner off of the second. Then he double faulted. Then he went 2 central on a pretty decent passing shot look. Not easy, but okay. Not super tough either. 9-all. Another second serve for Felix. Struff, forehand return, crushed up the middle for a forced error. Demolished. Service winner on set point. So basically, Auger-Aliassime's serve abandoned him when it counted late in that second set. Wasn't even really in any of the points because he couldn't get past him hitting second serves into Struff's return. And then it was delayed due to darkness. So he could have gone to bed. I mean, this couldn't have helped, honestly. He had to go to sleep at night thinking about the fact that he should have been up 2-0, and he wasn't. Then they came out on this Thursday. Struff came out red hot, played a huge third set. Then in the fourth set, I didn't see that much of it. Felix went 0 for 7 on break points, so he clearly had his chances. Another tough one in the clutch department. Big result for Struff, who has been teetering. Big picture. Another guy, late in his career, not so great week to week to week these days, but it's Wimbledon. He likes the surface. I'm actually surprised he hasn't had better results on grass throughout his career, but that's neither here nor there. And he's shown up here with a big result, but obviously Alcaraz next for Struff. Mensik beating Marcos Giron. I had Giron as a dark horse, and frankly, the way Giron played in this match, I feel like he was threatening. I thought Giron played really well. He was using that big forehand, which is just a weapon that's built so perfectly for grass, and I was amazed at Mensik's ability to fend it off and defend. The sliding open stance backhand of Jakub Mensik is automatic. It is like it's routine for him. Saw it on match point, by the way, at 6-4 in the tiebreak. I don't know if that match point is up in the highlights and on social media, but that's just one example. I always love it when something like that pops up on the match point so everybody can see it. I can't use footage, unfortunately, because it's Wimbledon, not a regular ATP event. Anyway, it was very Medvedev-like at times for Mensik and how he was building pressure, flying through service games with free points and then making every point a grind on return. Again, the ability to just absorb and defend off of Giron's forehand is what stood out here. Gutsy effort in the fourth to, avoid a fifth. Giron served for the fourth set. Mensik played a really good game. And, at this point in Jakub's career, he ain't trying to play 5 sets. It's just not what he's trying to do. So that was big. That's all I got on that. Djokovic, A+ performance against Dan Evans. A+ performance. Menacing serve numbers for Novak. Let me pull them up here. They were super duper good. Wasn't in trouble on his serve until the last game of the match at all. He ends up serving 78% first serves in and winning 40 out of 45. That's 89%. So you basically can't dominate anymore. Novak ended up 46 winners to 14 unforced errors. He ended up 22 for 26 at the net, 85%. So this was like a clinic. This was like a beat down with a capital B, hitting all his targets on aggressive ground strokes. Evans' lack of speed really showed. He was getting in on Dan's backhand, volleying beautifully. Novak in the past has struggled with his backhand, with slice into his backhand. Dan Evans beat him in Monte Carlo in their only previous meeting, and we've certainly seen that. But his counter slice is really good now, and he can just bide time. You never feel like he's going to get put in trouble when guys are slicing to his backhand, because Djokovic is able to sort of re-slice off that ball now really well. In case you're wondering, Djokovic is now the bagel king. That's right. Well, not quite. He's tied Andre Agassi. Novak Djokovic with his 50th 6-0 set at slam level to tie Andre Agassi for most sets won 6-0 at majors in the Open era. 50 for Agassi, 50 for Djokovic, 46 for Federer, 44 for Connors, 44 for Nadal. Shout out to the account on Twitter at Tennis Bakery for that stat. I love that account. Now, public service announcement here. I'm sorry if you guys have heard this before, but this is definitely a performance where this is kind of just worth rehashing, resurfacing. Performances like this don't matter. Like they don't matter. I used to think they did. I went a long time as a young, more inexperienced tennis viewer where I would look at a performance like this early round in a slam versus lesser competition, and I would draw conclusions from it. I would look at a performance like this and I would say, whoa, Djokovic is looking great. Novak I got to change what I thought coming into the tournament. Novak is awesome. Tremendous. There was a time where I used to do that. And by the way, it would have worked the same way the other way around. Like, let's say Djokovic struggles against somebody, in the first or the second round. I used to think, oh man, this isn't good. He's not in form. He's not going to play well. He can't win this tournament anymore. So both ways, I used to draw conclusions, and then eventually I got burned on that, or that led me astray over and over and over and over and over again. Eventually I learned that it's total BS. You're going to go to sleep at night. You're going to wake up in the morning. You're going to go to sleep at night again. You're going to wake up the next morning. You're going to play somebody completely different. Temperature might be different. The ball that you're going to be getting is different. How they react to your balls are going to be different. It's just going to be a different day and a different match. So, look, you guys know coming in, I'm very high on Djokovic. I think he's the solid third contender, and I think he's going to push, at the very least, push Jannik Sinner if that match happens. So that's where I stand on Djokovic. But it's not because he can crush Dan Evans. It has nothing to do with the fact that he can crush Dan Evans. I draw no big picture conclusions from this. Was it a monstrous performance? Yes. Jaume Munar conquering scar tissue. He was 0-11 for his career in major second rounds. We saw how tight he got against Fils at Roland Garros. Just excruciatingly tight. Couldn't hit the ball. In this match, he didn't get tight at all. Just kidding. Yes, he did. He blew 10 match points in the third set before finally getting done. So congrats to Jaume Munar. First slam third round. Overcame the scar tissue. It wasn't easy. Hopefully now he can relax a little bit and let his skills shine. Because if you're good enough to win 11 times in the first round at majors, you are good enough to win a second round match. And, the mental was getting in the way of that, clearly. Swiatek versus McNally was interesting for a little while there. Katie's got some grass stuff to her where she slices really well and she comes forward really well. But Iga lost that first set mainly because her forehand was all over the map. I thought Swiatek's forehand was the worst ground stroke on the court down the stretch of the first set. And as soon as she got that together, And, McNally stopped serving 81%, which is what she did in the first set. As soon as those two things happened, it was no longer much of a contest. At the end of the day, Iga just had to get it together on the forehand. As soon as she did, lights out, too lopsided from the back of the court. Tommy Paul was upset by Sebastian Ofner. I think the conclusion here is, Tommy didn't come into this grass swing in any kind of condition to really compete. I think that's clear. No disrespect to Ofner. No disrespect to Dan Evans, who beat him in Eastbourne. But there's an ab injury for Tommy post Roland Garros. There was a foot issue in this match which James Blake, I didn't watch that much of this match, but James Blake said it affected him. Again, I can't really attest to it because I didn't see him. But let me put it this way. Tommy Paul, against players outside the top 100 in the last 2 years, 18-1. 18-1. Going into Eastbourne, he comes off of injury at Roland Garros and loses in back-to-back weeks against players outside the top 100. Let's read the tea leaves. Let's be logical, right? Let's just be logical about it. If you're 18-1 and then you lose twice in a row to Evans and Ofner, you're not right. Tommy Paul wasn't able to be Tommy Paul. And just given the preparation coming in and the health stuff, I think it's pretty obvious to see why. And that's our show. I'll see you after the third round concludes. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.